China's peace plan for the Ukraine war. Welcome to N.D.P. News, where every day we dive deep into current international affairs. As tensions continue to rise between Russia and Ukraine, all eyes are on the meeting between China's leader, Xi Jinping, and President Vladimir V. Putin in Moscow. While Chinese officials have framed the visit as a mission of peace and an opportunity to promote talks between the two countries, Western officials are watching closely for any signs that China may support Russia's ongoing military actions in Ukraine. According to U.S. officials, China is still considering providing Russia with weapons, including artillery shells for use in Ukraine. Even a call for a ceasefire by Xi would be viewed by some as an effort to strengthen Putin's battlefield position by allowing Russian troops to occupy more Ukrainian territory than they did when the conflict began. Critics argue that a ceasefire now would effectively ratify Russia's conquest and allow it to continue occupying sovereign Ukrainian territory. This move by China would follow a classic playbook strategy of calling for an end to the fighting while bolstering its own position and reputation. In this video, we will examine how Xi Jinping will grapple with mediating between both Russia and Ukraine. We'll also examine his potential motives in attempting to help mediate the war. Stay tuned for a detailed analysis of the situation as we delve deeper into the complexities of this international crisis. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on the latest from N.D.P. News. And with that, on we go. The role of China in the Ukrainian conflict. Between neutrality and support for Russia. Last month, the Russian leader met with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Moscow to discuss the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and the relations between their two countries. While China's plan, which was published last month, did not explicitly call for Russia to leave Ukraine, it called for peace talks and respect for national sovereignty, without providing specific proposals. However, Ukraine has insisted on Russia withdrawing from its territory as a condition for any talks, and Russia has shown no indication that it's ready to comply. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has expressed concern that calling for a ceasefire before Russia withdraws would effectively be supporting the ratification of Russian conquest. Despite this, during a joint news conference, Putin stated that many provisions of the Chinese peace plan could serve as a basis for settling the conflict in Ukraine, when the West and Kyiv are ready for it. Xi, standing alongside Putin, claimed that China was on the right side of history and supported peace and dialogue. He also reiterated that China had an impartial position on the conflict in Ukraine, seeking to position Beijing as a potential peacemaker. The two leaders also discussed growing trade, energy, and political ties between their nations, with President Putin pledging to maintain and surpass last year's high level of trade achieved between the two countries. China is currently Russia's leading foreign trade partner, and the two countries regularly engage in joint military exercises, with Beijing joining Moscow in frequently denouncing NATO. Although Chinese officials have not explicitly condemned the Russian invasion of Ukraine, they have stated that all nations must respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and have worked with Russian diplomats to block international statements condemning the war. Some analysts suggest that Xi's claims to be a peacemaker are merely a guise, allowing him to strengthen his partnership with Putin, whom the International Criminal Court recently accused of war crimes in an arrest warrant. Despite this, China remains firmly embedded in the global economy, and Xi and his aides aim to avoid being seen as malign actors on the world stage, particularly in the eyes of Europe, a significant trade partner. While Xi has not spoken to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky since the war began, Zelensky has maintained that he will only participate in peace talks if Russia withdraws its troops from Ukrainian territory, including the Crimea Peninsula and the Donbas region. China seeks mediator role in Russia-Ukraine war, raises eyebrows in Europe. Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Moscow to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin and signed two joint documents. One detailed plans for economic cooperation, and the other laid out plans to deepen the Russia-China partnership. Additionally, the two leaders agreed on a plan to build a pipeline in Siberia to deliver Russian gas to China via Mongolia. They also expressed their concern about the new AUKUS Pact, a defense agreement between Australia, the UK, and US, and discussed NATO's growing presence in Asia on military and security issues. However, the West is growing increasingly worried that China might provide military support to Russia. Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO chief, stated that the alliance has not seen any proof that China is delivering lethal weapons to Russia. But there are signs that Russia has requested weapons, and the request is being considered in Beijing. However, a joint statement released by China and Russia after the meeting between the two leaders stated that their close partnership did not constitute a military-political alliance. They added that their relations do not constitute a bloc, do not have a confrontational nature, and are not directed against third countries. European officials have had varying attitudes toward China, with some prioritizing preserving trade ties with Beijing. However, China's alignment with Russia throughout the war has spurred growing suspicion and hostility in many corners of Europe. Some officials reacted warily to the announcement of Xi's trip to Moscow, seeing it as a further sign of China's friendship, if not alliance, with Russia, as well as an effort by China to present itself as a mediator in the war. Wang Yi, China's top foreign policy official, stressed the need for peace talks at the Munich Security Conference in late February, before a stop in Moscow. He used language that appeared aimed at peeling European nations away from the United States. He suggested that Washington wanted the war to continue to further weaken Russia, stating that some forces might not want to see peace talks materialize. They don't care about the life and death of Ukrainians or the harms on Europe. They might have strategic goals larger than Ukraine itself. This warfare must not continue. However, European officials have been critical of China's stance, which they do not view as neutral. Ursula von der Leyen, president of the European Commission, said that China's statement was anything but a peace plan, but rather principles that they shared. She noted that China had taken sides by signing an unlimited friendship right before Russia's invasion in Ukraine started. China's regular denunciations of NATO also make European officials bristle. In its position paper, China stated that the security of a region should not be achieved by strengthening or expanding military blocs, a statement that supports Putin's claim that he had to invade Ukraine because of threats that included NATO expansion. The Chinese position has been criticized by Nabila Masrali, a spokeswoman for foreign affairs and security policy at the European Union. She argued that the Chinese position builds on a misplaced focus on the so-called legitimate security interests and concerns of parties, implying a justification for Russia's illegal invasion and blurring the roles of the aggressor and the aggressed. Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, said that Xi's Moscow visit suggests that China feels no responsibility to hold the president accountable for the atrocities committed to Ukraine, and instead of even condemning, it would rather provide diplomatic cover for Russia to continue to commit those great crimes. Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO Security General, also criticized China, stating that China doesn't have much credibility, especially because they have not been able to condemn the illegal invasion of Ukraine. Let us know in the comments below what you would like to see more of and covered by N.D.P News. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.